All right, everybody. For starters, I'm gonna dedicate this transit lunar return video to my lunar brother CD Lamb, who's also got shares the same Aries sun sign as me. His birthday's a week before mine, so CD, you're my favorite because we're almost astral twins. I hope your rising sign is Gemini. So in this instance, in this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to calculate a lunar return and give you an idea of how to do a monthly forecast for yourself. What I've done is, once again, I've gone to alab.com and I have my natal birth chart is there on the left, and I've calculated my monthly lunar return for March here on the right. And exactly like I taught in the solar return video, you look for the degree and the minute of whatever planet you're trying to look at. So in this instance, we're using the moon. So I go to my natal birth chart is 1601. Again, that's 16th degree of Capricorn in the first minute. 16th degree of Capricorn in the first minute. I just went, I looked at when the moon would be going through Capricorn, and then I had to hunt and pick and hunt and pick and hunt and pick in order to adjust the wheel accordingly. So after many attempts, I got to this time right here, so it'll be 6:05 p.m. And again, that's when I'm looking for that, right? That is my identifying mark. The only type of return charts I really do are solar and lunar. You could do a Venus return chart, and you could do a Mercury return chart, and those take about a year and a half, depending on certain retrograde cycles. Mars return charts and Jupiter return charts and Saturn return charts, those take a lot longer. So Mars takes a little 2.5 years to make a return. Jupiter will take 11, sometimes 12 years, and Saturn is at 28. No one will ever experience a Neptune or Pluto return. Some people, if you're lucky to live past the age of 84, will get to experience a Uranus return. And that is the reason why I only focus on solar returns and lunar returns, because those are the most two important. The solar return gives you an idea of the yearly forecast to come, and then the lunar return report breaks that down into months. So I have set up now my lunar return for March. When it comes to return charts, I always try to keep it in the most simplest of terms. I try not to overanalyze things and try not to come up with as long of a description as I would in, say, a natal birth chart or a transit chart, especially not for just a monthly lunar return. So the first thing I look at is the aspects in here. Again, I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to pay attention to the color coordination. Blue lines indicate positive energies flowing. Red lines indicate difficult energies flowing. And then green lines are what I consider the most confusing of all the aspects. And they are easily influenced, and they'll kind of sway to either way, which is more overpowering. If there's more blue lines in the chart, then the green lines will kind of turn to blue. If there are more red lines in the chart, then the green lines will add to the difficulties by confusing and making you kind of oblivious and not able to identify what the problems are. And that's just green lines in general. So after I get just a quick overall philosophy, just what colors are in there. You can see there's a handful of red aspects, so I would say, okay, that's a little bit difficulties going there. You see some good blue lines going there and some more blue lines going there. So overall, I would say that that's a decent month ahead. And that could be an indicator of my birthday coming up. And because this is March 25th, and my birthday is April 15th. So this is less than a month before my birthday. And I would, after I get an idea of good or bad, positive or negative, just looking for the overall influence by the aspects. Then I look at house placement. What planets are positioned in which houses, and then what signs are they in. So because I got a lot of planets in this fifth house, that means I'm going to have a lot of fifth house energies. So these four planets, once again, you need to know your symbols by now. These four planets are going to give the type of influence to that fifth house energy. So I need to know what the properties of Saturn, Venus, Mars, and Pluto are going to be like, and I'll get an okay. I'll have those energies in my fifth house. The fifth house is a fun house. It indicates recreation, vacations, kind of a carefree Leo attitude. And I'm actually kind of happy about that because I know I'm going to have some good structure in there with Saturn. I'm going to have some material and possessions with Venus. I'm going to have some ambition and drive with Mars, and maybe a little obsession and possession and jealousy, man. That's what Pluto brings around. So got some good lines and some bad lines pointing to each one. I kind of kick out the node when it comes to monthly and yearly return charts. I uh, I do that because I don't know a whole bunch about the node. I understand it's your karmic destination, and I think it's extremely important. So I believe that it's a more of a long term. Like when I have, because I see some red lines going to that node, it means some of these difficulties that I have will probably reveal themselves farther down the road after the month has occurred, or maybe even years down the road, or maybe it's a philosophy that I'm able to learn and use continually down the road. Like maybe I learn a new skill that's going to change the way I do mechanics or my woodworking projects or stuff like that. The next thing I notice is all of these planets up in this part of my chart. If all of these planets were in up here, I would say, you know, career and education, friends, social groups, people, the way I interact with the public. This is somewhat more of a personal, individual part of my chart. This is definitely this moon in my fourth house. That's very powerful because I know that's the ruling house for the moon, and that's probably going to mean I have some more emotional contacts with family members and those closest around me. So I'm kind of happy about that one. This right here, because it's the Sun, Mercury, Neptune, and Jupiter, that leads me to believe that all these YouTube videos that I'm making are going to get better and better and better, and I'm going to be able to reach a more expansive audience over the next month. And that's because Mercury is a planet of communications. Neptune is a planet of spirituality, along with Jupiter. Jupiter's the higher forms of philosophy when it comes to spirituality. Neptune is more like the emotions and the feelings and the independent connections. What is this? What's going on? Oh, hey, I don't know what was going on right there. But so Neptune will give you the more emotional connection to your spiritual beliefs, while Jupiter actually is those spiritual beliefs. And that's just my philosophies. That's just what I believe. And the sun being in there, that energizes my ambition and is the driving force behind it. So hopefully a lot of these videos become better and more educated, and I have less botch ups. Maybe it can indicate I get better communication equipment so that I can have better audio and stuff like that. So that is just, I don't take very long. It takes me almost as long. Nah, I shouldn't say that. I don't spend more than 15 or 20 minutes trying to analyze a lunar return chart. I can get a 15-second interpretation of okay, good or bad with that. Then you start looking at which planets are involved. Uh, if you have blue lines between the moon and say Mercury, that means you're going to have more emotional communication abilities. You'll be able to talk to people on a more connecting level, and you will be able to express your feelings more. If there are red lines between those two planets, that means you've got difficulties expressing those emotions. Maybe you have some harsh conversations that don't make you feel very good, but at the end of the day, sometimes you got to do that. Like pulling out a nasty sliver. Sometimes you got to cut into yourself and get in there, and it hurts a little bit. But once you get the sliver out, you get a lot better. So that's my uh, uh, lunar return chart for March. What I've also done is calculated my lunar return chart for April, and I'll show you the difference, and you can see the difference on this one. Let me get this better, because just because that's how I like to look at my charts. So again, I've gone 1601, and you can see the time, the date. That is dictated by that. So I went and found when my next solar return, lunar return is after that one, and now I'm going to get an idea of this. You can see the similarities. You can see a few more of those red lines right there. Those planets are still there. We got a couple red line right there. We see that red line is right there, kind of as well. That's because those are slow moving aspects. This aspect between Pluto and Uranus over here, that's gonna last a while, because those are slow moving entities. They are triggered by the faster moving entities like the sun and the moon. So because I have the moon in my first house over here, I'm probably going to get more comfortable with some emotions. I'm probably going to have better, more positive feelings because I've got blue lines pointing to it. If those were a bunch of red lines pointing to that moon, then I would probably have the perception it's going to be a difficult month. I'm going to have to yell and scream and holler and probably have a bunch of problems. I'm actually somewhat intrigued by my next two lunar return charts. So CD Lamb, if you're listening, all you got to do is follow these instructions and figure out when your lunar return sign is as well, because I know yours is close to mine. You, my boy, too, Dak Prescott, is just, you're a Leo and your moon sign is Sagittarius. So we're not as the same as me and CDR. All right. I'm not going to go into much more dissection of this chart. I just wanted to show you some of the similarities as from one month to the other. You can get an idea of maybe how the planets move. You see how Mars and Venus have moved from this Aquarius sign right here near Saturn. On this one, they've moved up here into the Jupiter and Neptune. You can see how Jupiter has moved up here past Neptune in the month. And then Mercury and Venus, they were back here in the early signs of Aries. Now up here, they're in Taurus. So you can get an idea of how fast the planets are going to move over the span of a month, and how the wheel shifts as to each time. Again, to set up the chart for lunar return, I'm looking at the moon, and I'm going to go to 16°01 right there, and that's because when I go to my natal chart, that's where it is. So I hope y'all enjoyed the video. I'm going to keep on plugging and chugging along, and hopefully some of this made some sense to y'all. Have a nice day.